the third best player in the world right now, and that's Jason Day, who won his first PGA Tour event in 5 years. Did it we talked about this earlier in the week. It might feel for some people like this came from out of nowhere. It did not. He's been playing. He's one of only 6 guys this year that's gaining over 2 strokes per round, and he just didn't have the wind to kind of show for it. So I guess my question for you, Greg, is what are you most impressed by this year? Not just this event, but this year with Jason Day, because there's a lot going on with him. It was all discussed on the broadcast. It was all really interesting, but what has impressed you the most about his year and the way he won this tournament?
Well, I mean, I would like to start with some of the statistics, right? So what has he improved on from a statistical standpoint? And it's so clearly his iron play.
Yeah.
Which is so important, right? I mean, from basically 2017 until last year, he's outside the top 100 on tour every year, losing bleeding strokes approaching the green. And he was still able to win a couple of times despite those difficulties. But then all of a sudden he gets that turned around. And this year, this will change, but he was inside the top 35. And it'll go up because this week that was a strength of his game. I mean, he was third in the field approaching the green. But then with Jason Day, there's this next layer you got to peel back. Well, it's not just he found something with his iron play, right? I mean, you're dealing with injuries. You're dealing with a swing change. I'll even put the emotional stuff, which today especially is a really big deal. But put that stuff off to the side for now. And when you're dealing with a body that is constantly injured, I mean, the guy's laying in his bed at 34 years old thinking, is it too early to retire? Can I make it to 40? Right. That's because of back pain. He's immobilized. He can't move. He can't compete. So he's got to fix the body. Then he's got to rework the swing so the body stuff doesn't happen again. And then he's got to bring it to the golf course and compete. And, early on last year when these swing changes were starting, I mean, like January of last year at the Farmers Insurance Open, there were a couple of times where he got himself in contention and faced these iron shots that were pivotal, and he hit some terrible shots. And all of a sudden, then the rest of that year didn't really materialize, but the work and the progression has come through, and this year it did materialize. And he looked like in the fall, the guy to have a big 2023. And it doesn't always work out that way. I mean, I think everybody predicted that he was going to have a breakout year. And that falls flat more often than not. And it hasn't for him because everything that he did in the fall has continued.
Yeah. And I think, he's talked about this a lot. And it's really interesting to me when you have a guy that used to be the number 1 player in the world, won 10 times from 2015 to 2018, won a major, won the Players, did everything, and then he falls to, I think it was like 164 during last year. And to get back to where he's at now, like winning and playing like a top 5, top 10 player in the world, it takes an extraordinary amount of work. And you kind of got to be obsessed with it, right? And he's talked about that. Yeah. He's talked about being like calling his coach at 1 a.m. I don't know. It sounds like kind of a weird thing to do. I don't know if he's actually called his coach at 1 a.m, but just the idea of like, I'm so obsessed. And this is a quote that he said, I'm so obsessed with the golf swing. It's all I think about when I wake up, when I go to bed. And you're like, God, that's kind of relatable. Like, I kind of love that about, like, I guess my point here, and I'm curious about what you think, is I think Jason Day in his struggle has become more endearing than he was in his success. And that's not an unusual path. Like, I think struggle is endearing because we all struggle with whatever our job is or whatever our life is. But I just think he's become more relatable now after he's gone through 2 or 3 years of really not playing very good golf.
And he's been extremely open about it, right? This would be an easy thing to try to avoid or not talk about. But he's talked about it on every level. What's going on with his health, what's going on with the golf swing. He gets into the technique of the golf swing to the
I love it.
obsession. I mean, sometimes he gets into it not even asked about it. He just goes there, and that's because that's what's on his mind, right? It's in the forefront of his mind. He's looking for a way to weave it into the conversation in an interview. And so you hear these things that it peels back the layers and you get to know the person and you appreciate what this person is going through, is dealing with, what they're doing to get back to the top. And, quite frankly, Kyle, this week, hearing him speak this week, it sounds like, he's not there yet in his mind. He's still in the progression. There are still things that need to work out. So it was kind of bizarre in a way when he won. It wasn't like I didn't get the sense that he had gotten back to the mountaintop in his mind. Felt like, okay, I won, but I still have work to do.
Yeah, the emotion of it did make me sort of feel what you're saying, which is not like, hey, this was the goal. It feels like the goal is beyond this, right? And
Yes.
I guess it begs the question of what is the ceiling for Day? I mean, can he, like, what do you think about the rest of his year? Can he win 3 times? Can he win the FedEx Cup? Can he win a major? Like, I just don't know. I think if you're paying close attention, him winning an event at the level of the Byron Nelson seems, I don't know about obvious, but it seems like pretty like a normal thing. Like, yeah, of course, like this is how he was playing. He's going to win an event like this. But what can he do beyond that for the remainder of 2023?
Well, he is 8th on the PGA. I mean, this doesn't include a win. Okay, so this is where he ranks on the PGA Tour this year. He's off the tee, he's 26th. Approach the green, he's 27th. Around the green, he's 26th. Putting, he's 11th. Okay, now that guy is that's a great player. What's the limitation for that kind of profile? He's top 30 in every single category. That's a guy who can win any event. He has plenty of distance. He is averaging 303 off the tee this year. That's 63rd on tour. That's plenty long to play just about anywhere. So what's the ceiling? I mean, could he win 3 more times? Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he won 3 more times. I don't know if he will, but he has that kind of game right now.
Yeah, I legit think he could win the PGA Championship next week. And I think the reason I think that, you were getting at this, you look at a statistical profile in 2015, 16 when he was winning everything.
Yeah.
And it was driving and putting. And he wasn't good at, we talked about this on Thursday. He was a good enough iron player, but he's almost switched the iron play and the driving, right? To where the total still adds up. I mean, like the total is still mostly the same, but he's doing it more so with his iron play. He's actually a more accurate driver than he was back in those days. Not as long, but he's more accurate. And I think all things being equal, Greg, you would rather get your strokes gained with iron play than you would driving. I think. I'm not.
Well, definitely for 1 week, right?
Yes.
The shorter term. The shorter the term, the more advantageous that is, because that's all of a sudden it's direct opportunities. Where driving, the theory with driving is, well, if you gain a ton of strokes off the tee, you're going to give yourself chances to give yourself chances.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's like the 10,000 hole game. Like if you went and played 10,000 holes, Rory and Rahm one of those guys would win, or Scheffler. Like, for sure, because it's the driving thing or it's the distance thing. But I think you're right. Like setting yourself up for, and this sounds crazy. I wonder if Jason Day is a better player right now than he was back in 2015, 2016.
I get where you're coming from with that, but I don't think he's as electric on the greens. He's
Yeah.
still great, but he was, jaw dropping with his putting back then.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that makes him feel, it made him feel invincible. It has an effect on your opponents, but he is a much more steady player now. That's for sure. And you can see the potential where if he gets hot, and look, the putting has been great. It doesn't feel like it's been red hot at all. And that's kind of scary.
Yeah.
You kind of look at a great putter who's not hot yet and still putting up numbers. That's kind of scary.
How good was that wedge shot into 18 to basically lock it up?
I mean, you think about the decision to lay up, and
Yeah,
that to me presents a lot of confidence in that wedge play. What he left himself like 87 yards, and it's like he knew, well, I'm gonna make birdie from there, and he had to. So it was perfect. That's all it was. It was perfect.
It really was. It was a very cool finish, and really to me sort of like a signpost on what has been a pretty remarkable run back toward the top of the world golf rankings. I don't know what he'll go to. Maybe Nosferatu has tweeted it out, but I don't know what he'll go to in the OWGR. But it's been a huge rebound for Jason Day over the last from where he was at 2 years ago.